Greetings and welcome to the Design Your Life workshop. My name is Marissa Smith and I'm with the Alumni Association, and I'm just thrilled that so many of you have taken the time out of your schedules to invest in your personal and professional development today. This topic is going to be so relevant to so many of our lives, and I can't wait to get started. So I'm not going to take up too much time, but just have a few announcements to share off the beginning. So first, you'll notice a lot of folks are sharing already in the chat. Where are you joining from and what made you decide to be here today? So feel free to jump in and be a part of this with us. Next, I want to give a huge shout out to our Alumni Association members and donors. They power everything that we do. We couldn't do our programming without them. So if you're joining today's workshop as a member, thank you so much for being here. And if you've thought about joining the Alumni Association, now is a great time to do so because we have a really fun Career Month offer where if you join in the month of February, you get the free cool socks that you see on the screen. Next, I want to give a heads up about some other programming that we have coming up. This workshop is a part of Career Month, and we have a whole bunch of events that are happening this month to advance your career. Soon we have the Black Identity in the Workplace panel, which is going to be great, and also the Maroon and Gold Connections event, which is a free networking event for all students and alumni of the University of Minnesota to come together on a new platform called Hopin, which is going to be super interactive and allow you to make new connections across industries that are of interest to you. So definitely check out the Maroon and Gold Connections event and the Black Identity in the Workplace panel coming up next week. And then if you are a student or a recent grad from the last 3 years, then the U of M Virtual Job and Internship Fair next Friday is another opportunity that's available to you, which should be really great this year as well. Career Month wouldn't be possible without the support of a bunch of sponsors who you see here on the screen. So wanted to thank all of our sponsors for helping make Career Month possible. Our presenting sponsor is Freedom Financial, and they are proud to present Career Month because quality education and career development go hand in hand with their mission to help everyday people move forward towards a better financial future. So thank you again to all of our sponsors. And now let's get into how today's workshop is actually going to run. Got just a few housekeeping items on how to use Zoom. So first, you have some options in terms of your speaker view. So if you want to make sure that you're always seeing the speaker, go ahead and click on the view button in the upper right-hand corner and select speaker. Next, we hope this will be very interactive and you can ask questions of the presenters anytime using the chat feature. And also, if you wish to ask your question live, we'll do our best to monitor for that. You can select the please raise your hand feature under participants. Next, we will be using breakout rooms during this session. This is an interactive workshop, and Design Your Life, you're intended to get feedback from others on your ideas and work them out loud. So there will be 2 opportunities to interact with others in breakout rooms, and we just wanted to give you all a heads up about that. And then also, if you want to change your name for any reason, you can do so by clicking on the participants icon, hovering over your name, selecting more, and then choosing rename. So those are just some hot tips for using Zoom today. And now, finally, I want to introduce our wonderful presenters for today's session. And then I will turn things over to them. So Katie Selby has been coaching early career professionals through career and life transitions for more than 20 years in her roles as a career coach, college recruiter, and leadership educator. Katie is the founder of QuarterLife Coach, is a certified Designing Your Life coach, and holds an M.Ed in Human Resource Development from the University of Minnesota. Sarah Woznicki-Smith will be joining Katie, and she is the Assistant Director of Student Engagement at the Carlson School of Management at the University of Minnesota. Sarah has spent more than 8 years supporting, leading, and advocating for students and helping them find their voice and purpose. Sarah holds an M.Ed in College Student Affairs Leadership from Grand Valley State University and has completed life design training at Stanford. This is all to say we are in very good hands today, and so I'm pleased to welcome Katie and Sarah, and we'll turn things over to them now.
Thank you. I'm excited to see so many people joining the call. And Sarah and I were saying we did a smaller Designing Your Life workshop for the UMAA exactly 1 year ago today. We were talking about how we didn't want to be on camera. We didn't know how to use Zoom. It was crazy. And wow, how much has changed in a year. And that also brings us to today's topic, which is a lot has changed in a year, and the our user needs for what we need in our lives has also changed. And that's what we're going to take a look at today. And so these tools from Stanford, it's called Designing Your Life, we'll talk about this, have been really impactful both for myself and for Sarah. And we'll talk about some stories as we move along today. Today's concepts start with the design thinking process that was made famous by David Kelly in Silicon Valley. He founded the product design firm IDEO and also the design school at Stanford. This is the process that product designers and engineers use when they're creating new products and services. And some of you may be familiar with this process, and it's going to help us kind of think about some of the language that we'll use today. And so in design thinking, designers work with users to take a look at, like, how are they using the product? They empathize with users. They take a look at where the sticking points are, where the problems are, where the gaps are. They define problems. And then they ideate. They spend a lot of time looking at all kinds of different ideas, wild ideas. They have kind of traditional brainstorming thinking rules, which is like no idea is too crazy. And then they prototype. They go try small versions of the possible future with the world. They try it on, they test it out with people. They build on what is working, and they scrap the things that are not working. And then they build larger versions of those products and go test it in the world. So today, if you've done a workshop with us before, often, like last year's UMAA workshop, we just got through 2 parts of this process. Today, we're going to dive in deeper and expect a little bit more participation from you. So we will be using breakout rooms, like Marissa said. We will do some large group things. We will do some time where it's heads down time to turn your camera off and just work through some reflection. We will also have 2 times when we break out into breakout rooms where you'll work with other people. The first half of our time today will really be spent in reflection and empathize and define steps of the design thinking process. And the second half of our workshop will be a little bit more action oriented in ideate and prototype. So in design thinking, we also try on these mindsets that are kind of ways of working or thought framing exercises for us as we move forward in designing our lives. The first is radical collaboration, and that means we are open to other people's ideas. We put our ideas forward, but we know that they can only be improved with new ideas from others. The second is reframing, which asks us to take a look at how we could think about things differently, especially around failure, around limited mindsets, limited options for our lives. And we're going to ask you to do some of that today when we ask you for some wild ideas. Curiosity, I feel like, is the center of design thinking. Designers are constantly curious about how they can serve users' needs better. They're mindful of the process, and there's a bias toward action. So we talk with a lot of people often who feel like they maybe are thinking about their lives or thinking about their careers by sitting home and thinking about it a lot, instead of getting out there and trying things out with the world and seeing how it works for them. I had a client I was talking to recently that said, I think COVID just had us all sitting home and just thinking about things incessantly. And she said, I'm really ready to start taking some action. And so these as well will be language that we use as we go through the presentation today. Bias toward action and curiosity, I think you'll see a lot. Someone asked in the chat before we started, will we be using concepts from the book of the same name? Yes, this work is put together by 2 professors from Stanford, from the Stanford Design School, Bill Burnett and Dave Evans. We'll actually hear from one of them in a video later on today. The concept of designing your life takes the design thinking process that's traditionally used by product designers and engineers, and it applies it to our lives. So it considers us as the user. So I am the user of this product I created called my life. And it honors the fact that our needs are constantly changing. And so our user needs are continually changing, but sometimes the life that we designed or the career that we designed 10 years ago or 15 years ago no longer meets our needs for where we are right now. I think that has never been more true than it is right now in this state of COVID, in the state of constant change, changing expectations, changing what the workplace looks like, changing what our schools look like. And so I think this workshop for many of you, even if you've worked with designing your life concepts before, may be a really important time to refresh and take a look at what do you need right now and how can you test some things out to build your next chapter for your life. I am going to toss it over to Sarah, and we're going to start with the empathize step.
Yes, let me share my screen here. Hello, everyone. So excited to be here with you all. As Katie said, it is the time for us to start to empathize. As Katie mentioned, in product design, you empathize with the user, what they may need, but in life design, the user is you. So you're going to start to understand kind of where you're at and maybe where you want to go. So our first activity today is one of my favorites. It's called the Life Design Dashboard. And so it's going to help us select which area of our lives we might want to take action towards. Again, having that bias towards action, knowing that we can't tackle everything at once, and acknowledging that we are all likely pretty fatigued for a variety of reasons. So this will help us focus in on maybe one or two areas of our life that we want to take some action towards. So in life design, we think about our life in kind of four distinct areas. They're work, play, love, and health. And again, if you did this before, what you rated yourself about a year ago to what you rate yourself now may change. What I love about this dashboard is it's an opportunity to really reflect fairly frequently about where you're at. And so as we talk about work, play, love, and health, you can see the definitions on the screen, but things like play that are what you do just for the joy of it, not for merit, or love is all human relationships, or pets, four-legged beings, throw them all in there under love. And so knowing your status in each kind of one of these areas helps us give a framework and understand where you might be starting. And the goal here isn't to rate ourselves and work towards perfection or balance, but really it's a subjective sense of asking yourself the question, do I have enough here or is something missing? So you're going to rate yourself on this dashboard of how maybe fulfilled you are in each one of those areas. So I'll share here, this is what my gauges look like. So in a second, I'll share the link to the worksheet if you didn't get it in advance, but you're gonna shade in from 0 to full in each one of these areas for yourself. Again, oftentimes we get asked, what do you mean by full? There is no wrong way to do this. Full is decided by you. Each one of our lives will be different in terms of what we need. So really just reflecting on which one of those areas or where you are at in each one of those areas. So I'm going to flip to this. Again, if you don't have the worksheet or didn't get it in advance, totally fine, wonderful. What you're going to do is just write on a piece of paper, work, play, love, and health, and kind of rate yourself. Again, 0 to full, maybe how fulfilled you are in each one of those areas. And jot down kind of what came up as you were rating yourself on each one of those areas. I'm going to play some music for us, and I'm going to give you about 3 minutes to reflect on where you're at. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to put them in the chat. Katie's in the chat, I know, answering some questions along with our UMAA friends. So give it a few minutes, rate yourself, where are you at in each one of those areas? Right. It's a quick 3 minutes for all of us. If you are still typing, feel free to do that, excuse me, jotting those down. I do want to kind of launch a poll just to see where everyone's at. Maybe which one of those areas did you indicate could use the most improvement? So you should see a poll popping up here. Please take a second just to vote through. Give folks a few seconds to do that. We'll wait for maybe a few more folks to take a second to vote. Awesome. Let's end this and see where we're at. So the majority of folks said work is an area in which they could use some improvement, but we were pretty consistent across the board, which I feel like, Katie, it is something we see fairly regularly, areas in which people are looking to take a little bit more action in their life. So wonderful and great. I'm going to stop sharing that. Let me get back to my slides. second. Perfect. And so the next step in the life design process, as we talked about, you did a little empathizing, maybe an area in which you want to focus your time in today. The next is define. So we're kind of, again, starting to understand how we spend time in our lives. And again, things may be different since the pandemic. So again, our next activity is called energy mapping. And so we're going to look at activities in our lives that pop up regularly that give and take away our energy. So first, I'm going to give you a quick overview of what we're going to do, share an example, and then I'll give you time to do it yourself. But the first step is really listing your top 10 energy giving and draining activities that pop up for you during a regular week. So for some of you, this might make sense to think about in pre-pandemic times or post-pandemic times. For some of you, it might be thoughtful or engaging to think about where your life is now. What are the things that are popping up for you? So for me, there are things like student meetings, cooking, house projects, teaching, going to the grocery store. Never thought that that would be a staple in my life right now. But trip planning, thinking about what I might be able to do once it's safe, yoga, etc. And then once you have that list, you're gonna map it on this map of how much energy you gain or lose by those particular activities. So as you can see, they across the board on mine, they are kind of all over the place. There are some activities that give me a lot of energy and some that really drain my energy. There's also things on this list that both give and drain my energy. So for example, family and friends. Of course, I love spending time with my family and friends. It gives me so much energy, so much joy, but trying to navigate, coordinating, spending time with family and friends, figuring out ways to do that safely, what everybody's comfortable with is an energy kind of sucker for me. So trying to figure out, what does that look like? And I want you to take a moment to think about, are there activities in your life that both give and drain your energy? And again, it's okay if they both give and drain your energy. Just an opportunity for you to learn a little bit more about yourself. The steps 3 and 4 of the process, I think, are some of the most influential, which is noticing what's coming up on your map. So for me, I'll just share that some of the activities that I do by myself are the most energy giving activities. Activities like cooking, program planning, doing yoga, those give me a lot of energy. That makes a ton of sense. For who I am, I'm an introvert, and having that alone time gives me a lot of energy throughout my week. The other thing that I notice is while I love teaching and working with my team, being around large groups of people or being in a Zoom call with a large group of people can be really draining for me. So you'll see after this beautiful webinar, I'm going to grab a book and spend some time alone just so that I can regain the energy. And then step 4 is trying to think about what accessible changes might you be able to make. Again, knowing that there's a lot of parameters in our life, things that we can and cannot change. But what are the small tweaks that you might be able to make as you think about your week and where your energy lies? For me, breaking up kind of large group activities or large Zoom activities with solo work time so that I might be able to recharge and come back to the next large group meeting that I have with more energy and excitement. So with that, I'm going to give you, again, another quick 3 minutes to map out your energy. Again, top 10 energy giving and draining activities that pop up for you. Map them on the chart, how much energy they give you, how much energy they drain from you, and then start to think about what are you noticing from those energy patterns, and maybe what changes could you make to improve your energy flow. Wonderful. That was enough time for you to be able to get through steps 1 through 3. And if you got to 4, congratulations. That was some quick work on your part. Now I want you to have the opportunity, have the opportunity to be able to talk with one another. Again, as we mentioned at the beginning, some of the best parts of this work is being able to reflect with other people who may not know you. And that would be super helpful to get feedback. Again, people won't have biases coming into the conversations with you. So we have some questions for you to be able to debrief, with one another. And so reflecting on kind of those two activities that we just did, the work, play, love, and health, and then the energy giving and draining activities, where did you maybe find congruence between those pieces? Maybe where was it disconnected? So for the next 10-ish minutes, we're going to break you out into small breakout groups of 3 to 5, randomly assigned. And we want you to answer these questions. Firstly, we want you to introduce yourselves to one another, maybe share where you're coming from, and then talk about which area of your life could use improvement. Did you notice any trends from your energy levels? And maybe what surprised you? What came up? If you have time to talk with one another about ways in which you're trying to maybe prototype a way to gain more energy throughout your week, that's great and wonderful too. So again, we'll give you about 10 minutes to do that. We don't have a great way to send you these questions in the chat. So if you want to write those down, again, area of your life that could use improvement, any trends in the energy levels, maybe what surprised you, or take a quick picture. We will randomly assign those breakout rooms. Right now, I'll stop sharing my screen and you should be all set. Thank you, everyone. See you in a bit. Well, welcome back, everyone. Like I said, I hope you had some really thoughtful conversations with your new buddy that you met, talking about your life. Thank you for leaning into the vulnerability and just going with the flow and leaning into this process. It really is important to work with others as we go through. So I want to just take one moment to debrief a little bit, maybe what ahas you had from your conversation. So in the chat, I'll just ask if you had an aha moment from your personal reflection or your group discussion, feel free to throw those in the chat. Again, I think it's super valuable to hear from one another on what that is. If you're more comfortable, I think we have the option, if you want to just unmute yourself, you can do that too. But if we could get a few folks to share in the chat any aha moments or aha takeaways that they had. Amy, I just saw this one come through. Lots of energy giving activities are independent. Yes. Lack of play. Yes. We have heard that time and time again. That is for me, my biggest piece that I'm working on, how to integrate more play into my life. Many things are energy givers and takers. Yeah, I think that was the unlock for me, the aha moments, to understand that even the things that I really enjoy and give me a lot of energy can also be things that take away my energy. And how do I plan for that? Social media, Joan, I feel you on that one as well. I am there again. Yes, Marissa, world feels really small right now. We are in this own little bubble, and how do we add those activities that bring us energy in our day when the ways that we're able to do that might look different now. I hope you got some good ideas from one another too on ways that other people are trying to bring energy and play and joy into their lives. Wonderful. Try focus draining activities, shorter but more focused chunks of time. That's a really great tangible way. Again, those things that when I do this with students, I talk about, yeah, homework might be energy draining for you, but that doesn't mean I'm saying you can stop doing your homework. But how might you be able to integrate energy giving activities like working with others on homework into that equation? That's wonderful. Thank you all. Feel free to continue to chat those in. I do just want to say we're about 45-ish minutes in, and I think we could all use a little stretch. So you may have seen a preview. Take a moment just to stretch. This is hard mental work that you're doing. You may be sitting in a very comfortable or uncomfortable chair. So take a minute just to stretch before we throw it over to Katie to really get into the exciting work of how do you take all this information and move it into action. So with that, Katie, I'll throw it over to you.
All right. Keep stretching if you want as we go. I'm sitting in a very uncomfortable chair, so I appreciate that. Thank you, Sarah. As I said, the second half of our time together, we're going to focus on taking action. So we're going to spend some time on the ideate and prototype parts of the design thinking process. And you just did some self-reflection, maybe that defines an opportunity or an interesting problem. And now we're going to ideate on that. And so time to ideate your future. We're going to do something called Odyssey plans. And I totally have to admit that when I did this training at Stanford, I think we said this, but Sarah and I are both Stanford trained in life design. And this is one activity that I didn't do in advance. I was just like, when I first bought the book, I was like, that seems too vulnerable, too big. I'm not going to design my whole life. But when we went to training, of course, we had to do it. And it was one of the most impactful things that we did. We went in June 2019, and the second plan that I wrote for my life is the life that I'm living right now today. And so it's crazy how once someone asks you what's inside of you and what you might be interested in doing, for me and for some people that Sarah and I have been working with recently, we keep hearing like, no one has ever asked me before to talk about the things that I might be interested in doing. And yes, sometimes we get to share some crazy ideas. So our Odyssey plans look like this. It's a little worksheet that we have available in the links, and I will put the link up again as we go, but I want to explain what this looks like. So it is an opportunity to write 3 5-year plans, 3 wildly different 5-year plans. And you have 3 rows on your page that look like this. And if you don't have the worksheet, just use a notebook to write it down or to take some notes on things you think you might do. And there's a structured way that we're going to do this. And so I'll walk you through what Odyssey planning looks like. One part of your worksheet, it looks like this. There are 3 different little 5-year timelines. And we're going to ask you to write in those timelines some major milestones that might come with this life you're designing, both professional and personal things that you might want to do in that time. Make at least 1 per year. And like everything we've been talking about, there's no wrong way to do this. And so any ideas that come up for you, make note of them. Some people like to draw and doodle. I am more of a bullet or list person, a words person. So write what makes sense for you across those 5 years. And you're going to do it 3 times. And again, we'll have a structured way. We'll tell you how to do that. The other thing on your sheet are these dashboards. And I'll go a little bit deeper into dashboards. They ask us to consider, how feasible is this plan, or how might it work? And so the first one is resources. Do you have the objective resources you need to pull off this plan? And at this point, there's no judgment. We're just in ideation phase. It's just a noticing and observation of like, I don't know if I have the resources. I'm going to put my arrow maybe toward the middle, or maybe toward the side, maybe toward full, or maybe toward empty. The second is, do I like it? Are you hot or cold or warm about your plan? Sometimes we work with people that kind of fill out what they think they should write in the plan, and then they realize like, oh, I really don't like it. And sometimes that comes up in our current life, and sometimes that comes up in a wild and crazy idea that they created in their plan, but they realize like, oh, I don't like it that much. I'm not going to pursue it. The third is confidence. How confident do you feel pulling this off? And the last one, which I think is really important, is coherent. Does the plan make sense within itself? And is it aligned with your values? And so they talk about workview and worldview. Really, that's a look at your values. Does it align with who you are and what's important to you? We're going to ask Bill Burnett, one of the authors of Designing Your Life, to give us just a couple minutes explanation of how to write these 3 different plans for our life. And I will share that now.
It's really important that the 3 Odyssey plans for your 5-year timelines are really different lives. You know, saying, I could be a consultant and work for McKinsey, I could be a consultant and work for Accenture, or I could be a consultant and work for Bain. That's just 3 versions of the same life. That's not really a variation. What you want to do is pick 3 that are quite different. And we have a little template for that. You can pick the thing I think I'm going to do. I'm graduating from school and I have a job. That's 5 years. That's the job, and it goes great. The second plan is, what if you can't do that? What if they decide, oh, we're not going to hire you and you can't be a consultant? Now you have to be something completely different. So if the first job dies, what would be the second idea? And the third one, which is always a fun one, is what would you do if you didn't have to worry about money? What would you do if you didn't have to worry about what people think about you? And what we discover is that when you have that much range, each of the different plans kinds of helps the other one along. Each one informs the other one. And it's not so much that you're going to pick the crazy plan to execute, but that the things that come up there kind of remind you, oh yeah, that's important to me. Maybe I want to put that in a plan I actually choose.
Thank you, Bill, joining us from the internet. Like we said, there's no wrong way to do these. So I'm going to put an example up that I think is also in the instructions in your worksheet. This person wrote their plan for their business, some personal things like mountain climbing, and also notice that this person wrote family ? In year 1. They also wrote family ? In year 4. So this idea or this importance of family is rising, but they're not sure where that fits in their plan. And the point of this is just ideation, to get some ideas out. Also, remember there's these little dashboards underneath. So this person said they're feeling pretty okay about the resources they have. They like this plan a lot. They have a lot of confidence. And they're sort of in the middle about coherence, like how this plan aligns with their values and aligns with who they want to be. Just a reminder, as Bill said in the video, where the 3 ways that you write these 5-year plans are these, and these are actually not on your worksheet. So you may want to make a note on your worksheet. I think it's also the instructions on the 2nd page of the worksheet. But if you're just jotting on your notebook, make a note of these three lives you're going to design. The first is what I think I'm going to do, or we often say it's just your current life, like the current plan that you're on. What would you do in the next 5 years? The second one is, what if that plan disappeared? And when we were at Stanford at the training, they said, not like you're going to go work at the university across the street. Like, what if the whole industry of higher ed evaporated? What would you do if that option went away? And it used to feel really funny asking people, what would you do if your whole industry disappeared? And then COVID showed up, and whole industries are on pause right now. And this is real for people. We had one of the participants maybe on the call say she had done this with a group about a year ago, and all the things she designed, some of them are off the table or no longer available. So this might be a time to really refresh your plan and take a look. If that has gone away, what would you do now? And then of course, the third one, what if money or image were no object, but other people thought of you? And so this may seem like a big undertaking, but I think the best ideas come when we listen to our heart and our gut. And so we're going to give you 10 minutes to design 3 versions of your life. And this is exactly how Sarah and I did this with the authors at Stanford and their staff. 10 minutes to complete 3 different versions of your life and see what comes up for you. And once again, we'll share some music. You can turn your camera off if you want, just have heads down time, some time for reflection. I think reflection is a gift in the middle of our workday. We'll see you in about 10 minutes. All right, wrap up those last few ideas that you had that you're jotting down for your wild and crazy life number 3. When I first did this activity, I feel like I had a lot to write for the first plan just because it was the life I was familiar with. I actually had a lot to write for the second plan, but the third plan was actually really hard for me to come up with wild and crazy things. So again, there's no wrong way to do it. It's just like, what's inside of you that no one's ever asked you to share before? Or what ideas do you have that you could possibly take a look at? So we're going to move forward and talk about how you might take action with these things. So now we're going to move to the prototype stage, which is the speaker that I follow. I love this podcaster called Kathy Heller, and her podcast is called Don't Keep Your Day Job. She talks about, one of the quotes that I love is that action begets clarity. And so if you're thinking about like, well, I don't know if I would like this, or I don't know if I could do this, or etc., you often don't know that by just sitting at home and thinking about it. You have to put yourself into that situation and test it out. And that's why we're going to talk about prototyping next. I really think that prototyping can help us to reduce our thoughts about fears and failures, or I guess in design thinking language, they can help us to reframe our thoughts about fears and failures and put you in a new space of consistently trying things. So why prototype? Why just not, walk out the door and change your life? It's all about learning. So prototyping helps us to build our way forward with increased confidence. So every small change that we make in our life, in our career, or in that product that we're developing, that this woman has something in her hands, I'm not sure what it is, we learn by each step that we take. And so you can experiment by putting yourself into new possibilities and build on the things that work and scrap the things that don't work. In life design, we want to go from maximum learning for minimum investment. So I was shocked. Sarah and I took classes at the Stanford Design School and spent a little time in their prototype labs. And their labs are full of like paper, glue sticks, pipe cleaners, styrofoam, a couple 3D printing machines, and that's about it. And you know, we were at the wonderful Stanford University, and they're really about how do you build minimal viable product, really, and test it out in the world. And so in life design, I also want you to think about prototyping as how can you take one small step to try out an idea that you have and learn from that idea before you take a larger step. It reduces our risk, it increases our confidence, and it helps us to learn what works for us or what may not work for us. I remember myself one time I was doing an informational interview when I was considering a career change with a woman who was in a field I thought was fascinating. I met her at a coffee shop, and it took about, I don't know, 8 minutes in this half-hour conversation before she started talking. She got all animated and excited about her work. And I could feel myself pushing away from the table, thinking like, that sounds terrible. Like, I'm glad you would like this woman on the other side of the table from me. I'm glad you're great at it, but that would not be good for me at all. And I can learn these things through small conversations instead of spending time writing a resume and applying to those jobs. So again, we're going to ask Bill Burnett, one of the authors of Designing Your Life, to talk to us about what life design prototyping looks like and how to take some ideas from your Odyssey plan into prototyping. So take it away, Bill.
You use the Odyssey plans to come up with ideas of things you want to prototype. Because if you remember back in our design thinking diagram, after you do ideation, these ideate up 3 different versions of your life, the next step isn't go think about it or you know, execute it. It's come up with a prototype that you can try. So there's lots of items on your Odyssey plans, on your 10-year plan particularly, that you'll look at and you'll say, gee, I wonder if I could have a little bit of an experience or talk to somebody about this thing so I could find out some more about it. Because we don't want you to jump in and end up in a plan that isn't really a good fit for you. Because all this plan was in the beginning was just an ideation. It was kind of a brainstorm with yourself about what would it be like if I did this for 10 years. So now we need to figure out, the next step in design thinking is, how can I prototype little parts of this thing to find out if it really is a fit for me? Because I just have a guess that it is. The prototypes will tell me whether I'm on the right path or not. Sometimes it's tricky to figure out what can I prototype and how do I actually get started. It's really simple. You get curious, you talk to people, and you try stuff. Get curious, that's one of our mindsets. Something on the plan I want to know more about. Get out in the world and talk to people because you're not going to learn anything in your own head. And then try stuff. In the world, sometimes we have to do something to feel if it's right for us. We can't just think about it.
So in life design prototyping, actually, I'm gonna before I start this, I'll ask you to take your Odyssey plans and circle 2 or 3 things from any plan that you're really curious about and you want to know more about. It might be something you know nothing about, like you're going to start a landscaping business, or you're going to write a book, or you're going to adopt a cat, or you're going to move to Germany, or whatever it is on your plan. The 3 things that you feel like are calling out to you that you're really curious about, take a moment to circle those, and we're going to use that going forward. But in life design prototypes, these are a few of the ideas that we have for how to do this, to learn about the things you're curious about. The first is simply conversations. People know them as informational interviews, and in the kind of last third of the book, they talk about life design interviews and how to conduct them. But informational interviews can tell us a lot about what it's like to work in that field, what it's like to, even things like what requirements are there. It may unveil kind of what skill gaps you have or what you need to do in order to be able to achieve that next step. You can meet the team, talk to people that work in that field. What kinds of people do they work with? Do they value what you value? Do they read what you read? Are they people that you want to learn from, etc.? And I am a big fan of this concept of a personal board of advisors, people in your life that know you, that support you, that are vastly different from you, that you can just test out these ideas with, and they can be honest with you about what they think for your fit in those, that next chapter that you're designing. Experience, I think, is the best way to prototype life design. It's a little more difficult during COVID, I have to say, to just get out there and have these experiences. But if you can volunteer or job shadow or join a board or take a class to test out the thing that you want to do, I was talking to someone the other day that's interested in working in data science, and I asked, like, what are the gaps between where you are right now and being able to work in this field? And he said, well, I'd have to learn R and a couple other technical things that he was interested in. And I said, well, what's a small way that you could prototype that? And he came to the conclusion that he was going to take a 4-week class in R online just to see if he liked the work and if he actually liked doing that. So what are small ways you can learn rather than just taking a leap and maybe moving jobs? And then also lifestyle prototypes. So sometimes these changes require big lifestyle changes. So what does it feel like to commute to a new place or take public transportation or a new workspace? Maybe you're working from an organization that traditionally works from home and you decided you like, or traditionally works in the office and you decide you like working from home. And so what is it like to work for an organization that's only structured to work from home, that everyone is remote? Those might be things you could try out. Try a new schedule. We have a woman that we're working with, Sarah and I, who's in public accounting that wants to switch to nursing. And she talked about maybe trying out the schedule of a nurse to see if she likes that. So think about some ways that you might prototype some things. Again, circle 2 or 3 things in your Odyssey plan that you're curious about trying. And now we're going to go back to our small groups and have you help each other think about this. Again, we'll have you introduce yourselves briefly and just share one idea from any of your Odyssey plans that you'd like to prototype more. You can give a little backstory or some context to your group. And the power of talking to each other and sharing your ideas with the world is that those people can help you to brainstorm prototypes. So if you said to them, I would like to, I'm thinking about starting a podcast. I'm curious about that. How would I even get started with that? Use the power and the wisdom of your group members to come up with some ideas. And then we're going to ask you for some of the most delightful prototype ideas when you come back to us. So all right, we are coming back. Thank you for sharing in your breakout rooms, everyone, sharing with your new best friend or your partner. We're going to ask you to share in the chat box what was the most delightful prototype idea that came up in your breakout room. What's something that gave you a lot of energy and you're excited to try? Delightful prototype ideas. Starting to see them coming through. Working for nonprofits. Spend the month of January in a warm place. I think everyone wants to vote for that. Job shadowing, life coach. Oh, able to get good feedback from people when you're open to being vulnerable. I love that, Britta. Thank you for saying that. Get started writing op-eds. Go for a hike in Duluth before you climb Mount Kilimanjaro. I love that. Sarah's working on reducing world suck. I always love that when you say that, Sarah. Traveling to South Korea and Japan, living abroad. Marissa was saying she put her age and her kids' age on every one of the 5-year marks, and that changed her perspective. Thank you for sharing those things. I'm going to keep, buy a Tesla. I love that. I'm going to keep moving forward as you're sharing your things in the chat. Please look at other people's ideas as they come through. We wanted to just mention life design is an iterative process. So this is a process that you can use again and again as you find yourself stuck or you find yourself wanting to make a change. If you continually take a look at what your user needs are telling you and continue to prototype small ideas that you have, it's been a really freeing process for me in the last 2 years to take a look at how can I continue to try things and continue to adjust as I go. So remember to reflect on each prototype, to take small learning steps forward and learn a little bit about each experience before making a major investment. If you're interested in this life design stuff and you want to learn more, these are the resources from Stanford. The Designing Your Life book is there. They released a new book last February, just about a month ago, or a year ago right now, called Designing Your Work Life. And that is an excellent book it's kind of like rethinking your current situation. If you're not happy in your job, but you're interested in making some changes within your job, they have some excellent suggestions for that. The Designing Your Life workbook is great if you're someone who likes these exercises but wants to have a place to keep it all and you like following prompts, almost like a journal format. We use that a lot with groups also. And then Designing Your Life is the Life Design Lab website where they have blog posts and communities of people you can join who are discussing what they're doing around life design right now. I also just wanted to share contact information for me and Sarah. So if you're interested in talking with either one of us, Sarah is working on life design with Carlson students right now and prototyped a new class at the Carlson School this fall. I am working with people individually and in small groups working on life design as a coach and a coach certified by Stanford. And so we have a number of prototypes in play right now and are just having a lot of fun with this work. So there's how to reach out to each of us through LinkedIn or by email. And I will throw it back to you, Marissa, and the UMIA.
Katie and Sarah, thank you so much for sharing your time and expertise with all of us. This was such a valuable session, and I know it's going to have me continuing to think and reflect in the days to come. This is Robbie, everyone. He is my 6-month-old who frequently makes appearances on work meetings. So again, I just want to thank everybody for joining us today for Career Month. And we'll be sending out the recording and the slides after today's session so you can rewatch or revisit anything that you might have missed. And we'll also include the links to some of those upcoming events that are still left this month. And finally, wanted to just put in a plug for the Maroon and Gold Network. So one of the ways that Sarah and Katie suggested prototyping your life designs is by getting out and having informational interviews and conversations with people. And we have the Maroon and Gold Network, which is an online platform for University of Minnesota students and alumni to connect with one another. Think of it as our own LinkedIn on steroids, and everybody there has raised their hand specifically and said we can help in this way. So we'll include a link to the Maroon and Gold Network as well, so you can get on that if you aren't already. With that, I hope you all have a great rest of your day. Thank you so much for joining us. Bye now.